Greetings to everyone. Please let me know if you can hear me well enough with a new microphone, hopefully improving things a bit here, as well as see a screen that has Sebastian Rogers' picture there. I want to make sure that's going through. Okay, so it looks like it is going through. Good. What I'd like to do is first play the short interview. This is going to be about a 15-year-old autistic boy who has gone missing. I believe it was February 26th, the morning of the 26th, when he was reported missing by his mother. Just be forewarned, the video is highly edited from the media, and I'll have some comments on that as well. But let me see if I can show the video first, and you'll be able to hear things for yourself here.
County describe to us exclusively how they feel on day 8 of their son's disappearance. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Marius Payton.
And I'm Lauren Lowry. Sebastian Rogers is 15. He was last seen by his parents on February 25th in Hendersonville. Sebastian has autism, and he's gone without his medication this whole time. And since then, authorities have searched by air, by foot, and on horseback.
Helicopters, drones, and dive teams have also been brought in to try to find him. Today, his parents spoke exclusively to our Holly Thompson.
She's live tonight in Sumner County. Holly, I imagine it was quite an emotional interview.
Certainly was. It is hard for any of us to imagine the emotions that this family is going through right now. But we know one thing is certain. They remain positive. They are holding on to hope that their son Sebastian will return home safely.
Can you walk us through what you're thinking right now?
I just want my baby to be okay. I don't know where he's at.
Mom Katie broke down several times in our interview, but says her hope is strong that her son Sebastian will be found safe and return home.
He's going to walk through that door, and this street will be flooded again with family and relatives all waiting to hug and love him. And
Stepdad Chris says it's been an emotional roller coaster that all started Sunday night, February 25th.
Pretty normal. He was playing in his room. When I told him to go to bed, he did. He said, "Good night, Mom. I love you."
Katie says she went to wake up Sebastian around 6 a.m. Monday for school, and he was gone. Within minutes, Katie says she was on the phone with Chris, who was working out of town, and they quickly called 911.
And he's not a runner. He's never run away before. I don't know why. I don't know why he walked out that door.
I mean, he's a good kid. He's not a mischievous child by any means.
Katie and Chris say Sebastian is not on social media. While he loves to play Minecraft, they tell me he does not have any online capabilities. I asked if there was any reason he might want to leave.
We've been combing over that day and even the weeks before he left, and I hadn't been able to figure it out. He's that morning he was laughing, he was joking.
It's as if Sebastian vanished. No sign of him on any video throughout the community. Thousands of miles logged by law enforcement, canines, helicopters, even dive teams, and no sign of him. Chris and Katie tell me they've been harassed, people pointing fingers at them.
You're not in this situation. You don't quite understand. I wish people would step back, take a different wide open view, and not assume what they know. It's just better to stick to the facts.
Are you both in the clear?
I can tell you that Mom, myself, and the father have worked very fully and cooperatively with all agencies across the board. We have anything that they've wanted, we have provided.
What do you want to say to Sebastian? What do you want him to hear from you right now?
That we love you so much and we want you to come home and you're not in trouble.
Now, Katie did tell me that even though Sebastian does have autism, he is a smart teenager. He is highly functional. They say if you see him, say his name, say Sebastian, and he'll respond. He'll at least acknowledge you. And I can tell you, this is my home. This is my community. And the people here are strong. They say they will continue to search. They will continue to hope and continue to pray for Sebastian's safe return. And by the way, you can watch my full exclusive interview with Sebastian's parents on our WSMV4 app. Live here in Hendersonville, Holly Thompson, WSMV4. Back.
Okay, so that was the news blurb. You may have noticed the interviewer, I think, was somewhat theatrical, giving a perhaps even an exaggerated facial appearance that she's concerned, unnecessary moralizing. It doesn't help facilitate the flow of information in an interview. I recognize that it's on television and ratings matter and audiences matter, that sort of thing. But in terms of gathering information, that itself, even that type of demeanor can influence answers. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. And then I'd like to also contrast that with the, I'm going to call him bio dad, the biological father, because the one we just saw now was a stepfather. And some of the things that I think were a bit concerning from what the parents, the mother and the stepfather, had to say there. So it's very edited, so we have to be very careful, and we have to consider the context. And the context starts off with, we have a teenager, and that is, of course, always an area that can, or at least we should explore for the possibility of arguing, temperamental, highly or acute hormonal responses. But in this case, we're looking at someone with autism. Kids with autism do run away. Kids with autism are drawn to water. And so those are things that are concerning. And I'd like to look at some of those external factors before we get to the language. So that's a concern. And the mother described how he will respond to his name. So that suggests that the autism is more than mild. When we look at a missing child with special needs, in spite of age 15, I don't know if he's capable of self-protection. I don't know if he's capable of obtaining food for himself, surviving out there, that sort of thing. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know much about him. What I do know in behavioral analysis is that this heavy responsibility of having a special needs child may increase the odds of some form of abuse and neglect. It just, and this is not about this family, this is in general itself, because parents get worn down. They can lose their temper once and something can go wrong. They may have a difficult time getting breaks for themselves to recover. And none of this I know regarding this family, what it's like. All I know is from a few short quotes and a little bit of behavioral analysis. So number one, where there is a high need child, an acute need child, there's always a risk. And that can be from whoever is watching him or her at that time. Anyone can lose their temper. It takes a really special person to, I think, navigate some of these difficulties. Secondly, just going by statistics, stepfathers get looked at. Stepfathers and boyfriends are often found to be more abusive in these type of cases. I don't know if that's the case here or not, but just one of those things that's going to factor in. It's like trying to think of a 15-year-old who is missing without thinking of the factors around the 15-year-old. difficult to do. And I'm not sure about the wisdom of it. We need to listen and we need to pay attention to the context. The next area of behavioral analysis is this particular station said that this is an exclusive, and the quote to introduce it, the story was, the mother or the family breaks their silence. So one of the questions I have is, why would you be silent? If your high needs or special needs child, 15, is missing, how is it that you're able to quench the instinct to call out to that child for what appears to be about a week or so? Why would you need to break your silence? Why would you be silent? Why would you not immediately call out to that child? Interesting, I saw the father, the bio father, being interviewed. He was speaking to his son and giving him his advice about how to run away. That's expected. That's a norm. But this delay concerns me, and I'd like to look at a couple of the statements that they said. So the bio dad spoke and said he was on a roller coaster. When you hear roller coaster, it means up and down, up and down. Perfect time for a interviewer to ask about that. What are the lows like for you? What are the times that are up like for you? But no such question was asked. He talked about coming through the door, which I was just a little concerned about in terms of how that plays out within analysis. I've heard him in other clips, and one of the ones I had cited, I believe I cited through social media, was with drop pronouns. I'll pull that up for you. The drop pronouns are always a concern, and here's what he said. So dad said, bio dad, if someone has you, run. Call 911, grab to anybody. That was good. That is something that's expected. The $1 million question, if you saw that quote, the $1 million question that he asks,
And many other
was fascinating to me.
Ride of helpless and hopeless, and many other emotions all in one, and it's a never-ending roller coaster. It doesn't stop. It won't stop until he walks through the door.
My son doesn't run. He's not a runner.
Okay, I think it's a different clip then. I apologize. $1 million question is, where are you? That's the question that I would ask and reach out to him. That would work well. So the stepfather and the mother have both insisted that he left on his own accord. That, and you say, well, how do you know that? As a parent, if you wake up and find your child missing, your mind is going to race in every direction. You're used to caring for the child, now suddenly you can't. And so instinct is going to be engaged. Would you assume that the child ran away? Well, if the child has a history of running away, yeah, you probably would go there. But according to the mother, there was no history of that. And the stepfather, in dropping pronouns, he went right to the point. In fact, I will read that. He went right to the point of the door, and that was concerning. And in the point of the door, and saying he walked out, or actually he said walked out, would you know for sure that he wasn't taken, that he wasn't kidnapped, that he wasn't coerced, or that he wasn't persuaded, would you right go on his own, that no one was influencing him, that sort of thing? And he was asked about that. And he said, because we found the door locked in the morning. So that inclusion is a little bit concerning to me regarding how that is stated and how that's worded. And then there was another statement. The mom was asked about that day, and she actually said two things about that in the interview, if you caught that. There's several things, but about that day, it was pretty normal day. So there's nothing normal about a day when a child goes missing. There's nothing normal. What is concerning about that is that there is a need to portray something as normal. And there's a few other things that she said there that are very concerning. Things that we cover routinely, unfortunately, in these cases. So normal, portrayal of something as normal. It should put investigators on alert that what has taken place is anything but normal. The need to normalize something that is just way out there. I once had a case many years ago where a man was accused of sexually assaulting an adult with developmental disabilities. And my job was to investigate that. The referent said to me, before you get out there and investigate this, I need you to know that the guy that's being accused is a great guy. He's a retired medical doctor. He's in his 80s. He has a long white beard. He plays Santa everyone loves him. He's a great guy. And I said, okay, thank you. And as was my habit for these things, when I do an investigation, I don't let anyone set up an appointment for me, or at least I didn't. I do it myself. I make that call. It's very important because the first thing that someone hears is going to be important. Now, this man that I was calling to set up an appointment to speak is not supposed to know about the allegation. He shouldn't know. And that's very important. I want the cleanest response. I want him to say, I didn't molest so-and-so. I didn't touch him. When I introduced myself and told him where I was from, before I could get another word out, he yelled at me and he said, I am a normal man. The word normal, when someone uses that way, they're telling you something. They've either been considered abnormal by others, or they may consider themselves abnormal. It's the need to commit that. And I knew right at the first sentence, I knew he did it. The victim in this case had gone weeks without showering. He was more outgoing, and then suddenly he wasn't. He was suffering and will suffer. So I knew that this man was concerned about being portrayed as abnormal, and he was giving that away. So to understand that, what I sometimes do in a seminar is I'll say, okay, children, let's gather. Once upon a time, it was a day like every other. And you will naturally see kids sit up a little bit because they know what's coming is not like every other day. It won't be boring. So when someone portrays something as normal, always look for the opposite. Always ask, why do they have a need to portray it that way? Mom went further. Mom said it was pretty normal. And so I looked at that. And now I'm concerned as anything but. And then she said, I told him to go to bed, and he did. So she's, obedient. He's obedient. I'm not sure how many 15-year-olds obey that well, but remember, this is normal. And the 15-year-old said, "Good night, Mom. I love you." And that is, in context, a concern. It has to be only in context. And here's why. We find this in domestic homicides and domestic violence, other problems, where someone says, "I said goodnight to my daughter. I love you. Have a good night's sleep." And the need to include that I told my daughter, for example, that I love her, while giving a statement under duress of a missing child or of an investigation, is a sign of something very wrong. Now, why is that? Think about it. If I said, raise your hand if you tell your children you love them when you put them to bed, everyone does so. It's the need to tell police. It's the need to tell an audience while an investigation is going on. That is the alarming. And I had covered this once in a seminar where someone objected. And so I attempted to explain. I said, no, it's not concerning that you tell your child that you love him or her. It's concerning that during an investigation, that unnecessary emphasis is given. Well, no, I don't care. I want people to know I love my child. And that particular person had just been reported to Child Protective Services. So there was an alarm there. So it was provocative. We've also been able to, at times, with statements like this, I saw my girlfriend. I said, "I love you. We'll see you later, babe." Term of endearment, pointing to the time of death. And I'm not saying that Sebastian isn't alive. What I am saying is I am very concerned about the need to portray the day as normal and then to verbalize him telling me, the mom, that he loves me. In other words, I'm a really good mom. I'm a good person. My 15-year-old tells me. He goes to bed right when I say so, and he tells me he loves me. Now, I want every 15-year-old to obey her parents and go to bed when they're told to and get a good night's sleep and say, "I love you." That's great. But here, coming from a mother who has been silent for a week, who used the word normal, raises concern. And he was not a runaway. Oh, by the way, she also said about she went to wake him up for school or a day like that. She gave the reason of why she's waking him up, which catches my attention as well. He's not a runner. I don't know why he walked out that door. The fact that this is coming a week or so later is really concerning. If she had said it in the beginning, I don't know why he walked out that door. It's an assumption. And he was a runaway. And he was experiencing teenage angst, for example. That might be fitting. A week later, he hasn't been found. The search has been tremendous. And you're still making that assumption? I'm now really concerned that he didn't walk out that door because of the language. And by the way, I am glancing at the comments when I can. And someone wrote, "My son is nonverbal, so very vulnerable." It's unbelievable for people on the outside to understand that, how vulnerable they can be, including as adults, which was the case I cited earlier about the molestation of an adult male. Those that are nonverbal are open to all sorts of abuse and anger and outrage and everything else. So I don't like the assuming he walked out that door. Um, then we have the interviewer, again with the theatrics and the, just not a clean interview, but she asked them about coming under that suspicion. He didn't want to be judged. He wanted people to be quiet about it. And he didn't issue a denial, which always concerns me. But this is just my opinion after listening to them. I don't think things were good the night before he went missing. I don't believe it was a normal, peaceful, loving household like that. So at best, I think he ran away because they had a fight or something went wrong. And that's just my opinion. If they want to persuade me how good things are, it alerts me to the opposite. The mom said later, regarding that morning, it was good. He was laughing. My question is, when did you hear him laughing? So I have concerns about the environment. Now, worst case scenario, which I hate to entertain, but of course it's provocative, is that we'll see a further investigation into the stepfather and the mother. That's worst case. So I go from, at best case, he's found, he ran away because of what happened that night. And the worst case scenario is the possibility of mother and stepfather facing criminal charges. Any questions? I know there's very little to go on in terms of the statements and the heavy editing by the media there. But any questions on that? I just thought we'd take a few minutes just to, in case that's of any value. Karen Jessen, I thought he said, and I think she's speaking of the stepfather, I thought he was out of town. I believe he was out of town that morning or something. It wouldn't, in my mind, it wouldn't preclude him. Why are you so sure he walked out if you weren't there? That sort of thing. Whatever, and my timing could be off, whether it's the night or it was earlier. You know, what that will probably be something be found out eventually when Sebastian is found. I believe that something went wrong in the time period before she said that she went to wake him up and he wasn't there. That's her quote. Not that he was missing, not that he was gone. And the door was locked, something they both repeated. Molly, good question. The dad saying the boy isn't mischievous, is that alarming? I don't know. I need to hear more without those heavy cuts. I'd like to just hear them speak on their own. It's a positive linguistic, but is that part of the same boy that I love you, Mom, you know, this good boy? The mom chuckled after saying he was going to walk through the doors. That this stepdad chuckled as well. I don't do a lot with body language analysis, but you never know with someone being nervous. So I'd like to know why why it took so long to come out. Most people, I think, have the expectation that parents are going to be right out in front of that camera, right out with police, pleading, not waiting, not silence, not having to break silence. Wouldn't I expect mom to be giving away more signals? She gave away a couple signals that there was trouble in the household. But no, based on the very short and highly edited video. Someone mentioned that mom and stepdad sat down for an interview with a YouTuber. I haven't seen that. I haven't been able to find it. So if someone has, you can send it to me. I'll be able to get more insight with that. Could their words be tainted by any backlash they're receiving from the public? Yes. Most, I think, parents will say, I don't care what anyone says, find my son. Find my son. Mom also said, I don't know where he's at. I don't like that expression. I've seen that in other cases. Where he's at is where is he? But where is he at can sometimes be used at almost like a psychological description of where someone's at. They're happy, they're not happy, they're in a bad space, they're not in a good space, that sort of thing. So, yeah, I look forward. I didn't find it, but I would like to see that. I'll take a look. Yeah, another good point is that there was a young autistic boy who ran away, but actually was found hiding or stuck in a chimney, and he was alive. The problem is that if he wasn't a runaway and he wasn't on social media, as the days go by, then where would he be at? And they're combing the place, and they've been combing the place. What person would he have to count on that could help him survive? Lana, thank you for finding that link and send it. That'll be good. Someone is saying that on the channel, the stepfather, I assume, spoke about being strict. Again, that is something that is being brought up, and I think the person commenting there is correct about that. Being strict without anyone asking, offered while he's missing. Offered while he's missing. Remember, everything has to be put in context there. Try to remember saying goodnight, I love you to your kids. You probably don't have a need to respond back to me and say, hey, wait a minute, I say good, I love my kids, because you do, and you don't have a need to persuade anyone. It's the context is what is most important with that. Interesting. I like to see that too. Someone wrote the stepdad said that they all had a good relationship with the real dad, but the real dad was asked and said he wouldn't comment on that. He sounded like what most people would sound like. Sebastian, if someone has you, run. Get to the first adult. Call 911. Grab anyone. It's kind of a normal response that we would expect, rather than attempt to portray something as normal. Remember, we're not dealing with reality, but we're dealing with people's perception of reality through their words. Any more questions on this? I may do another video if I'm able to hear that podcast and have some more quotes that I'd like to look at. So my conclusion is that mom is withholding information about what went wrong prior to his going missing. And that stepfather's comments, particularly the claim about the door is concerning. And it's a little more nuanced than I have time to explain, but when after the amount of time that has passed, that he hasn't been found, for the stepfather and or the mother to talk about the boy walking back in, it may be a subtle blaming of the victim. Now, if he was a runaway and that was said on day one, I wouldn't consider a subtle blaming of the victim. Remember, human nature is such that the more that you accept it for what it is, the better you can be at criminal analysis. But human nature is such that we will do anything in our minds to justify guilt, to mitigate guilt, to alleviate guilt if we can. And one of the things we look for in criminal analysis is a subtle shifting of responsibility over to the victim. By saying that when he walks back in the door, not when he's found, but when he walks back in the door. Very concerning to me. Mom and stepfather had a 3-hour phone conversation the night before. Interesting. Someone wrote about the phone conversation, check the route to Memphis. Very good point. I'm sure they're doing that. Great question from Karen. When was the last time someone else saw Sebastian? I appreciate that. And I'm sure that the investigators will look at that. Collaterals, teachers, pediatrician, coaches, everyone gets checked with. It just by routine. So I think we're going to see probably some re-interviewing happening. And one other announcement, I'm hoping to perhaps cover the case of some of the language of the nurse who at the border of Mexico said she was sexually assaulted, and some of the things that are in the news of late with that one. And if you have other suggestions in terms of what you'd like to see analyzed, you can send it to hyattanalysis@gmail.com. hyattanalysis@gmail.com. Well, thank you, everybody. And I will see you again for another video.